Welcome back to the Turo 100 series. In today's video, we're going to talk all about the vehicle eligibility. Now that you've done your research, you just want to make sure that it falls into all of the parameters that Turo requires, and then actually listing your car and the best practices for that. So real quick, let's go down the line of vehicle eligibility. Now, there are a few key things that Turo wants to absolutely make sure that your car really measures up to in order to make sure that it's road safe and that it qualifies for their platform. So when you are searching on the market, you want to make sure that the vehicle has at least 130,000 miles or less. So I shouldn't say at least, but it needs to have 130,000 miles or less. If it's anything above that, you actually cannot list it on the platform. However, if it has 130,000 miles on it and then you list it on the platform, and then it continues to accumulate more miles, that is okay as long as you are keeping it maintained and up to all the safety standards that Turo requires. So just make sure if you are shopping used, like we discussed in the previous video, that you're not getting anything with some crazy amount of miles on it, because then you won't be able to list it. Then we're going to look at the title, right? So you have to make sure that it's not a salvage title, that it's not branded, that it hasn't been totaled before. It has to be a clean title in order to list on Turo. And finally, it cannot be older than 12 years. So whatever year we're in, whenever you're watching this video, just subtract 12 and it cannot be older than that. So they do have kind of a minimum age requirement because, of course, they don't want you, again, listing a vehicle that has 200,000 miles on it and that is like 20 years old, right? That is going to affect the quality of the vehicles that are on the platform, and they want to maintain everything at a certain level. So those are the basic kind of eligibility requirements that Turo does have, and so you want to make sure that you really check those off and that you are, obviously maintaining those standards. Okay, now let's talk about listing your car. So I am going to assume that you've gone ahead, you did all of your market research like we've discussed in these last videos, and you've acquired the vehicle at the correct price. You've proved that it could be profitable on the platform, and now you're getting ready to list it. So these are a few best practices that I've learned over the 9 years of doing this, and then some of the ones that Turo recommends as well when it comes to listing your vehicles. So of course, once you purchase it, you want to make sure it's super clean, nice and pretty, and very presentable, right? That is so important. But most importantly, you want to make sure that you are getting beautiful photos. Okay, I see a lot of people who will just get a car for Turo. They will pull up in a strip mall, shopping center parking lot, and then just kind of haphazardly take a bunch of photos of the car just to list the car. And I cannot emphasize enough how important it is to just take some time, use your iPhone to do it, or whatever phone you have. Phone camera qualities are so good these days that you don't need any fancy camera or, a DSLR or anything like that to take these photos. Just have nice scenery, nice backdrop. Take a look at your area. Where can you pull up to where it's scenic? Maybe there's nature or water behind in your backdrop to where you can take some really beautiful photos of your vehicle so that when you list it, it really presents very well. So when you go through the listing process, there are going to be a few things that you need, and these are things that I want you to prep for before you start that process. Firstly, really beautiful photos, right? We just covered that. Go somewhere scenic, and you're going to want to take, in my opinion, at least 15 to 20 photos inside, outside, and we will dive a little bit more deeper into detail on this a little bit later. But make sure you have plenty of photos, interior, exterior, the rims, the trunk, just so people know, like, what are they working with when they rent this car, and they have a really good scope of it. And I'm going to show you guys an example of a great listing in just a second as well. Then you want to make sure that you have your VIN number and your license plate number, because these are going to be requirements when you go through the listing process. Otherwise, you won't be able to complete the listing process on Turo. Now I'm going to show you guys an example of a really great listing, and then what the listing process looks like, so that you are prepared and you have all of that information to make it really simple and easy for you. Okay, so this is, in my opinion, a fantastic example of a listing, especially when it comes to photos. So we are looking at Ryan's Tesla Cybertruck, which Why not? Because it's beautiful. And as you can see here, I mean, obviously this host went above and beyond to get these photos and must live near SpaceX or, you know, drove out there, but they chose somewhere scenic, right? And while SpaceX might not be available to all of us, you can certainly find beautiful hiking trails and nature scenes and water. There's all types of places that you can find. But I want to show you an example of how important it is to show beautiful images inside and out so that people can really understand and grasp what it is that they are renting, and then it makes them more comfortable to actually complete that transaction with you. So you want to make sure that you really take time to take these images. Again, use your iPhone if you need to. They take great photos. And I have personally found, you know, if you're typically standing about at least 10 to 12 feet away from your vehicle when you're taking these photos, it gives you some of the best shots, especially when you upload them and you're really getting the image nice and centered, really displaying well on the Turo app. As you can see here with the Cybertruck, you know, it really just comes out very clean and clear. And again, if you can do at least 15 photos, I think that you will really have it working for you, because you have to remember when somebody goes on the platform, right? The first point of traction that you have with them is purely through images, right? So when I'm searching for, you know, in this case, I just have a bunch of Cybertrucks, but Ryan's Cybertruck really stood out to me because it had a very unique photo, right? I was like, oh, wow, that looks cool. It's taken at the SpaceX, and obviously they're all Cybertrucks, so they're all really cool, but this one really stands out because it just has a unique element to it, which makes me more likely to click on it because I'm like, oh, this car looks really pretty. It looks really cool. It looks really scenic. This is kind of where I'm going to be when I'm on vacation or traveling for business. So I'm more inclined to click, to look at your reviews, to look at your profile, to look at your price points, and to complete that transaction with you as a host. So that's why those photos are so crucial to any listing. In fact, the most crucial element to it is because that is the first point of interaction that a potential customer has with your listing, and you want it to be a good one. You want to stand out from the crowd and make sure that you display well so people are enticed to click on your listing, and then you're going to win them over with all the details of your listing. Okay, so we're going to go over how to set up an actual listing and plug in all that information that we discussed. Now, I'll be able to get you through most of the listing process, but since this isn't like an actual listing of an actual car, we might not be able to get through all of the steps, but by the end of this, you will actually have a complete picture of what it all entails so that you can be prepared and understand the process more. Now, once you created your Turo account, it's going to give you an option under vehicles to list a new car. First things first, it's going to ask for a location, and I'm just going to put something random, you know, just for the purposes of this. And it's not going to disclose your actual location on the public listing, but more of like a bird's eye view for anybody that's researching it until they actually book and the transaction is completed, and then they will reveal the pickup location. So don't worry, it's safe and secure, and so you don't have to worry about anybody ending up at your house. Now for the VIN number, you can find the VIN number on your windshield in the lower left corner, on your insurance, your registration. It's a 17-digit number. Now I just pulled a random VIN number for a car that's for sale online. It's a BMW 3 Series, just for the purposes of this example. So you will need to make sure you submit that. And then they are going to confirm that, in fact, the VIN number matches the year, make, and model of the car that you have. And so we're going to confirm that. And then you're going to submit the odometer reading, which, you know, I can actually check the actual listing I was looking at. Okay, so this has about 21,000 miles on it. So you just want to make sure you match, you know, whatever it is. It's an automatic. And we're going to hit next. And then you want to certify that you paid all the taxes that are due on that vehicle, which you should have. And then we're going to go to the next step. Now, this is where Turo is going to ask you, what are your goals? You know, especially for listing your car, is it full-time? Do you want to cover your car payment? Do you want to generate side income? And so, you know, you can put whatever is, you know, true to you. For most of you guys, it's building a primary income. And then we're going to put never, because it's for the sole purposes of Turo in this example, as it will be for most people? And how often do you want to share your car? Always, as often as possible. Now, I personally think that if you select these options as your goals, I don't know. I mean, not that I have any hard evidence, but I do think that it will help with your listing because, of course, the primary purpose of Turo as a platform is to have cars that are readily available to their guest and to make money, right? To generate income. And if your car is not really available as often, or it's really your primary car and you might just be renting it out sometimes, it's probably not going to perform as well because it's not going to show up in the search in the way that, somebody's cars that are available 24/7 around the clock are going to show up. So you want to make sure that you take that into consideration. Now, the next thing is car availability. Now, for my host friends that are newer, maybe you've joined in the last year or so, then as of March, Turo made a massive change to their platform, which is that they converted everybody over to instant booking. Meaning you cannot have your car available and then, either accept or deny somebody's request to rent your vehicle. They are automatically going to be able to rent it. It will show up as available. But later, if you choose to cancel it for whatever reason, then you do have the right to do so, although it will hurt your ratings. But that is the new change that Turo has. So now instead, if you want to kind of control how often somebody could book it or how much notice you need, because maybe you have a full-time job, maybe you have other responsibilities that you have to take care of, so you're not as readily available to have your car rented out, you're going to really control that through your availability settings. So they have things like advance notice, right? So like how much advance notice do you need before somebody can actually come pick up your car? So of course, the shorter notice time that you have, the better it is because then your car will show up in more search terms, especially for people who are looking for last minute bookings. And here they say like 18% of trips at the home locations are booked on shorter notice than your current requirements of 3 hours, right? So again, going back to that, it will get booked way more often if you have it readily available, but it's up to you, right? So you can choose between minimum of 1 hour and up to 1 day. Then next is you have your minimum trip duration, which is, well, how often does somebody have to, at bare minimum, book your car? Now, a lot of people will have 2 days, right? Because they don't want to just clean a car, get it ready, hand it off to somebody who just needs it for a day and then have to do that all over again. So again, to your discretion, but typically people will have either 1 to 2 days, and maybe they'll have, if it's 1 day during the weekdays, they'll have the minimum 2-day booking setting for the weekends, right? Because you want somebody to book out the entire weekend versus just a day on a weekend because that's peak time during the week to book your car. And then maximum duration could be any. So if you are accepting long-term bookings because your car is dedicated to Turo, then it can be any. But if you're like, oh no, I need my car at least every couple of days, then you can select something like 5 days, right? Meaning they can't book anything longer than that. So that is going to be your availability, and you're going to actually be able to adjust this a lot more once your listing is actually set up, and it's going to give you a lot more flexibility. So now you are going to need your license plate number. You're going to have to put what state it's in, and then you want to insert, some of the features that the car has, and all of this stuff is going to show up, in your listing, and people will be able to see like, okay, it has backup camera, it has Bluetooth, it's pet friendly, etc., etc. So you want to make sure that you really include everything that you possibly can that is available on your car. And then my favorite part, which is your description. Now, one thing that I highly recommend is that you have a minimum of at least 190 words in your description about your vehicle, about your process, and about, renting from an amazing host like you. Now, if you have any issues, you're like, oh, I can't write a great description. You can look at other people's profiles just to get an idea of how people write out their descriptions, how they really try to make it enticing for somebody to rent their car because of all the amazing things about their car, right? So like the Cybertruck listing we were looking at, you can just see it's full of details about, all the things that the car comes with, the experience of it, why it's so cool to rent a Cybertruck. And these are all really very big selling points for these cars. Now, if for some reason you struggle to write descriptions, these days you can definitely use something like ChatGPT to go ahead and write that description for you. You can easily put in a prompt like, hey, ChatGPT, I need a 200-word description about somebody renting out a 2023 BMW 3 Series. It has all these incredible features. Can you write me something that is very compelling, that is 200 words? It's going to spit out a beautiful description for you that then you can plug it in to your description box and then you can tweak later on. Now, because I don't have a license plate number, this is as far as I'll be able to take you guys on screen for the listing process, but let's just go ahead really quick and look at the rest of the listing process, which step 5 is going to be your car photos, which you already took some beautiful photos. It's just going to ask you to upload them. Then your safety and quality standards, they just want to make sure that your car is up to par, that it's safe, your tires are good, your brakes are good, and that it is road safe especially, right? And then finally, you're going to submit your listing and you're going to wait for Turo to approve it. Now, basically what's going to happen after that is that they are going to have kind of like a welcome call with you, right? A sort of a host orientation, I believe they call it. And that's where somebody will reach out to you, just make sure you're super comfortable, that you understand everything about your listing, and that you are ready to list your car and operate it and get out any questions that you might have. This is also something fairly new from Turo's end, but it's a great feature that they have that can really help, especially if you have any angst or uncertainty about what it might be like. And so they'll reach out to you and get that done. And usually like within a week span, you should be up and going. Now, on a final note, a lot of people always ask me, are there any age requirements when you're hosting on Turo? And the answer is yes, especially if you are, I believe, in US, Canada, and Australia. You have to be at least 21 years old or older to list your vehicle and host on the platform. And if you're in the UK, I believe it's 18 and older. So there is a little bit of an age requirement, not just on the renter side, but on the hosting side as well. So you want to make sure, you just meet that age requirement, if you will. But other than that, that is everything you need to know about vehicle eligibility and actually listing your car. You'll want to check out the next video to get through the rest of the Turo process that I'll be breaking down for you guys.